welcome to this high-flying edition of my favorite Pokemon types. In this video, I'll be talking about the flying type and my favorite flying type Pokemon. Pretty much, this installment is going to be a love letter to the tiny bird Pokemon that we meet at the beginning of our journeys. There are other flying types that I like, but these ones just really stand out, and I always think of them, plus they're birds. So Gyarados, I'm sorry, while you are a cool flying type, this video won't be about you. Without further ado, and just as my usual disclaimer, this has nothing to do with stats, has nothing to do with metagame, it has nothing to do with the most powerful Pokemon that are overused or underused, it just has to do with my personal preference. And now, to get started, you know, Pidgeot is one of my, longtime favorite Pokemon. I always hoped, you know, it would gain more wind attacks, and it does. Gust becoming a flying type move in Gen 2 and onwards was amazing. Then with Air Slash, it gets Hurricane, even access to the Dragon move, Twister. You know, I always imagine this Pokemon just powerfully flapping its wings, creating Gale Force winds, taking out the opponent. But I also like to imagine it, swooping down and using its beak too, even though it's not really meant to be much of a Pokemon that pecks. It's more of a generates winds. And I always really like that. That's what I wanted from flying types. And I still kind of want it, but at the same time I had to understand that they're birds predominantly, so you have to think of it more of that than, you know, elemental beings of wind. And then for Gen 2, you know, capitalizing mostly on the night and day aspect of the games, they added the owl Pokemon, Hoot, which evolves into Noctowl. And, okay, so in Gold and Silver, you could use Headbutt as a field move. There were particular trees, which were everywhere in the Johto region, in Gen 2 anyway, that when you headbutted them, a Pokemon might fall out. There were various Pokemon that you could catch this way, however, during the day, if you used Headbutt on a tree, right, a Hoot might fall out, and it'll be asleep for a couple of turns because you knocked it out of the tree while it was sleeping, though. Why it didn't wake up when it fell to the ground is beyond me, but that's how I met my Noctowl. Noctowl's pretty cool. It's a little bit different than the previous gen's little bird. It's more defense-oriented, but it has psychic powers too, and its eyes can see in no matter how dark it is, and with that Foresight ability, attack. With that, normal type moves can hit ghost types, which is very useful given that there's a ghost type Pokemon gym in the Johto region. Now, in Hoenn, with Talonflame and then it evolved into Swellow, abilities were introduced, and it had guts. So if this little bird got poisoned, burned, whatever, its attack would go up, and that was pretty useful. Plus, Swellow's got that cool design. I believe that they were going for a lark more than they were going for a swallow, but maybe I don't, know my birds all that well, but I do know that I like this blue bird. I like the little bit of red. I like the white belly. I really just like how it's made out to be a more aggressive Pokemon, whereas Pidgey and Hoot prior, they were more or less docile. So this bird of prey and having such strong moves, and then in Alpha Sapphire I caught one that knew Boom Burst, which, wow, and it can also have the ability Scrappy, allowing for its normal, and if it had any fighting, but its normal moves, to hit Ghost-type Pokemon, and it's immune to their attacks, so that just makes it all the better. And, I don't know, there was just something about it, it's just a very cool looking Pokemon. And I think everyone can agree with me that, Starly, it's very plain, and even Staravia is very, but then Staraptor is just this awesome bird of prey. It's just so, physical. Okay, so I taught mine Steel Wing, yeah, but it has Brave Bird, but more importantly, Close Combat. That's amazing. Close Combat on a flying type Pokemon. This particular bird can stand up to rock types and steel types, which would normally shut it down. It wouldn't be able to fight against them. Then, it has the ability Intimidate. Staraptor, at this point, stands out as the bird Pokemon that you want to get at the beginning of your journey, especially if you're from Sinnoh. And it can just like, it intimidates its foe, so it's almost like buffering its defense in a way, because now the attack is lowered. And then it's got these awesome moves. Granted, you know, close combat does lower its defense, but still, you're gonna get a good couple of turns out of this bird Pokemon, and even ice types are weak to fighting moves. Like, Staraptor has it made with just that move. Then, okay, so in Unova, Unfezant has 2 different forms depending on, you know, what gender your P-Dove was when you caught it. So I made sure I got a female, because the female Unfezant to me is just more sleek. It's got a nicer design. Like, it's just, to me, a better looking Pokemon. And while move-wise and everything else, you know, there's not much that stands out, except it does have access to Air Slash and Air Cutter, which are both critical hit-oriented moves, and it has access to the ability Super Luck. So you're pretty much going to get a Pokemon that can hit with criticals and then has 2 critical hit moves. Like, it's going to get your crits. So while, you know, Unfezant itself may not seem like it's such a, you know, great Pokemon, and you might have been planning on later in the game switching out for Wargaroo, or whatever its English name is that escapes me at the moment, but you might want to hold off on doing that, because, you know, a critical hit, that's 150 power hit, and, you know, like, percent boost to your regular attacks. That makes Unfezant pretty useful if you ask me, and you're using it as a flying type anyway, if you remember Gen 5 at all. But then everything changed in Gen 6, so when you catch a Fletchling and then it evolves into Farfetchling, and then finally Talonflame, you have a fire flying type. This changes everything. Normally your flying type stays normal flying, it's a plain bird. But then you get Talonflame with, you know, its flame body, so if the opponent even touches it, it might get burned. But it can learn Nitro Charge, it can learn Flare Blitz, Brave Bird. It gets access to, like, the strong moves for both of its types. It's a really cool Pokemon, plus it has Steel Wing built into its moveset, I believe. Which, let me tell you, Talonflame, when I got to that Fairy type gym, it was my savior. Because while I did teach a couple of Pokemon Poison Jab, yeah, no. See, none of my Pokemon, like, most of them were weak to the Fairy type, so being a Fire type, Talonflame really pulled me through, and then having that Steel Wing to get through the battle with, that made it a little bit easier. But then, you know, like, Cute Charm didn't kind of hurt me a little bit. But even so, without Talonflame, like, that gym would have been a lot harder. And also, you know, it's great for, it's your fly Pokemon, because back, you know, last gen, we still had to use HMs. But moreover, it helped me hatch eggs. It was in my Elite Four battles, and I kept Talonflame with me. Like, like I said, it becomes this really cool Firebird. It is such a great payoff, because Fletchling kind of left a little bit to be desired in terms of appearance. It's kind of like, well, but like I said, it's totally worth it, especially when it starts learning those fire moves. And if you started out with the, you know, say the water, if you start out with Froakie, which many people did, that just made it all the more beneficial to have on your party, because that was its backup if you had to face any grassers. But then we go to the tropical Alola region with Pikipek. Pikipek I really like. Just saying the name Pikipek is fun. But Pikipek evolves into Trumbeak, which then evolves into Toucannon. With Skill Link, Toucannon's moves, such as Rock Blast, Bullet Seed, etc., right? Even though they're not, you know, stab moves, it can keep going. It gets those multiple hit moves, and that's just really cool. But a lot of people, but it loses its speed, but that's okay, because when it's charging up its signature move, Beak Blast, if the opponent touches Toucannon at all, but let's face it, it's probably using its beak to dodge, if they make contact with it, it gets a burn. So, whoa, hold on, it's like Focus Punch, but you don't lose your focus, you'll still get to use your Beak Blast, and get this, the opponent, if they hit you, gets a burn. It is awesome, it is amazing. So even if you do get hit, even if you do get taken down, chances are the opponent might get burned. It doesn't go down so easily, and it's so bulky. Like, it's such a different experience with your bird Pokemon, and I liked that. I liked that Toucannon could just deal out this damage, and it had like this really awesome, like, what is this move? Like, holy crap. You know, it's a trap in a way. But those are my favorite bird Pokemon, or should I say flying types? That's more appropriate. Those are my favorite flying type Pokemon, and I'm sure we've all had our experiences with them. Let me know what about your experiences that you had with these Pokemon in the comments section below. Make sure to give this video a like, make sure to subscribe, and check out my other videos in the right hand column.